Cinema depends on a kind of trust. We agree to watch. They agree to pretend we aren't there. The fourth wall, unspoken, invisible, keeps that fragile illusion alive. But sometimes, something slips through, a glance that lingers too long, a pair of eyes that seem to meet ours, a flicker in the frame that feels aware. It's not a wink, not a performance. It's an interruption, sudden, cold, and unnerving. Someone on screen looks straight into the camera, just for a moment, and that moment shouldn't exist. These aren't playful nods like Deadpool or Ferris Bueller. They aren't jokes meant for the audience. They're accidents, if we believe they're accidents at all. Unscripted looks, forgotten edits, raw fragments where fiction collapses and reality seeps in. Sometimes it's an actor's fleeting mistake. Sometimes it's a background face no one remembers hiring. And sometimes it's something else. There's no mention of these moments in scripts, no trace in commentary tracks, but the footage remains preserved frame by frame like a secret the film never meant to reveal. Pause them, rewind, watch again. Each look feels more intentional than the last. Were these people simply caught off guard? Or were they seeing something behind the lens, something not meant to be seen? Tonight, we're descending into 15 moments where the fourth wall broke itself. No narrative reason, no explanation. Just those eerie accidental glances that reach out of the screen and make you feel watched. Because maybe these weren't mistakes at all. Maybe, for just a split second, someone inside the film noticed you. The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. Everyone remembers Hannibal Lecter's stare, calm, predatory, intimate. But the moment that lingers comes not from him, but from Clarice. In the final sequence, she descends into Buffalo Bill's basement. The power's gone. The air is heavy. The camera becomes her vision, every flicker of light, a heartbeat. And then, in a burst of tension, she turns her head. Her eyes meet the camera. It lasts barely a second, but it's enough to change everything. The look isn't fear, it's realization. She sees the lens. She sees us. For that instant, Clarice isn't just a character anymore. She's a person, cornered not by the killer, but by the gaze of an audience that's been following her every move. The fourth wall doesn't shatter, it vanishes. And what's left is silent. Because maybe she's not asking for help. Maybe she's asking why we're still watching. Cash 2005. Michael Haneke's Cash builds unease out of stillness. The frame doesn't move. The world does. And somewhere in that motion, something stares back. In one long take, Georges walks along a city street. The camera stays distant, static, coldly observational. People cross paths, drift by, vanish. And then, in the background, one man stops walking. He turns toward the camera. He doesn't blink. He doesn't move. The frame holds, daring us to notice him. It's subtle, so subtle you might think it's your imagination until the moment stretches too long to be coincidence. He isn't named. He doesn't appear again. But he's the only person who seems aware of the lens, the only one who sees what we see. Haneke's films are about guilt, exposure, and the illusion of privacy. So maybe this wasn't an accident. Maybe it's the film's cruelest trick, showing us ourselves through the gaze of someone trapped inside. Because sometimes, being watched isn't the horror. Realizing you've been seen is. Hereditary, 2018. In Hereditary, horror isn't about what's shown, it's about what's inherited, what's carried silently in blood and bone. And sometimes, it's about what shouldn't be seen at all. At the dinner table, grief erupts, words cut like knives. Toni Collette's fury fills the frame. Then the camera turns to Peter, silent, shaking, trapped, and for the briefest moment, his eyes meet ours. It's not an acting error, it's something else. It feels like a cry, a plea for acknowledgement, as if, in his pain, he realizes someone is watching, powerless to help. Ari Aster's direction is exact, precise. He doesn't leave room for accidents. Yet this one stayed a single, devastating look that collapses the barrier between audience and character. Peter isn't looking at his mother anymore. He's looking through the story, into the space where we sit. It's one of those moments that feels accidental until you realize it fits perfectly. Because in a film where every glance hides a secret, maybe the truth was never on screen. Maybe it was staring right at us. Possession, 1981. Few films bleed emotion like Possession. It's a descent into madness, faith, and something far darker. But there's a moment inside that chaos, quiet, fragile, that feels almost supernatural. Mark is talking with a teacher. The camera moves gently, framing them through glass. Everything feels calm for once. Then, in the blurred background, a man appears behind the door, staring directly through the glass and into the camera. He doesn't move, doesn't blink. He isn't mentioned in the script. He's just there. At first, you might mistake him for a reflection, but the light doesn't match, the angle doesn't fit. He exists independently, like an intruder caught inside a frame that didn't belong to him. No one ever identified him. No explanation was given. But the shot remains a ghost of production, frozen in time. In a film about identity fracturing and bodies transforming, maybe this isn't a mistake. Maybe this is the moment where reality itself looked back. Eyes Wide Shut, 1999. Kubrick's last film is a dream made of fear and ritual, where nothing is ever as it seems. But amid the choreography of masks and movement, there's one figure who doesn't play by the rules. As the camera glides across the room of masked devotees, all perfectly still, one man stands slightly apart. When the camera passes, he turns his head and looks right at us. It's not a reflex, it's recognition. Behind the mask, he seems to know something: the difference between performance and reality, between acting and being observed. He isn't identified. He doesn't reappear. But that one turn, that one deliberate glance, shatters the hypnotic illusion Kubrick worked so hard to build. In a film about voyeurism and hidden hierarchies, this moment feels like an intrusion from outside the narrative. Maybe he's not a character at all. Maybe he's a reminder that while we think we're watching, someone else has been watching back. No Country for Old Men, 2007. Anton Chigurh doesn't speak much, but silence was never meant to be this loud. In No Country for Old Men, every sound feels like a warning. Every glance, a sentence. Then comes a moment too still to be coincidence. He's walking through a dim corridor, shadows stretching along the walls. The camera follows from behind, patient, unblinking. Then, he stops. Slowly, deliberately, he turns his head toward the camera. He doesn't smile. He doesn't threaten. He just looks long enough for it to feel deliberate, long enough for it to feel wrong. It's not framed as a scare, not emphasized in editing, yet it's impossible to ignore. For that second, it's as though Chigurh sees through the film and recognizes the watcher. The Coen brothers never mentioned the shot. It wasn't planned, but it stayed. Maybe it wasn't Chigurh breaking the fourth wall. Maybe it was fate turning to look us in the eye, reminding us that in this story, we're not spectators, we're witnesses. Poltergeist, 1982. Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist is full of chaos, walls bending, toys flying, ghosts manifesting through light. Yet in the noise, there's one shot that feels eerily quiet. During the bedroom storm scene, the camera tracks the family as they scream and duck for cover. Furniture levitates. Objects spin mid-air. Then, just for a blink, a reflection appears in the far corner of the room. A man's face. Expressionless, watching. It's visible in the background mirror, except there wasn't supposed to be one there. Production blueprints confirm it. No mirrors were built into that set. The reflection stays for less than a second, but it's sharp enough to feel deliberate, haunting enough to question everything. Crew member? Visual accident? Or something else caught by accident, something that never left? In a film where spirits cross into the living world through screens and static, maybe this wasn't an effect. Maybe the camera just captured what was already there. Looking back. Fight Club, 1999. Reality in Fight Club is already fragile. Tyler Durden flickers into existence between frames, rules dissolve, and everything familiar feels contaminated. But one quiet scene hides a rupture no one ever repaired. At a support group meeting, the camera pans across faces hopeless, broken, real. Then, almost mid-motion, one man looks directly into the lens. He doesn't blink. He doesn't react. He simply watches. There's no reason for it. He has no dialogue, no purpose in the story. He just sits there, acknowledging us. Fincher's filmmaking is notoriously precise. So how did this slip through? No deleted scenes, no mentions, no explanations. It's not Tyler's trick this time. It's something different, something wrong. In a story about losing control of your own narrative, this is the most unsettling moment of all. That one extra, quietly reminding us that maybe, just maybe, the film was aware of us the whole time. Don't Look Now, 1973. Venice is a maze of water and shadow, and in Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now, it becomes a mirror for grief, beautiful, distorted, impossible to escape. But hidden in that labyrinth is a moment no one planned. Inside a church, the camera drifts slowly past a congregation. Candles flicker. The air trembles. Then, without warning, a man in the pews turns and locks eyes with the camera. He doesn't look startled. He doesn't look lost. He looks like someone who was already expecting to be seen. The shot holds long enough for unease to settle in. Then he looks away, and the movie continues, pretending nothing happened. He's not listed among the extras. He appears in no stills, no credits, no documentation. It's as if he exists only for that single frame. In a film where perception is never to be trusted, this one moment feels like the film itself breaking character like Venice. For a heartbeat, notice the viewer standing on the other side of the screen. Signs, 2002. M. Night Shyamalan's Signs is built on restraint. The terror hides in silence, in what lurks just beyond the frame, but deep in one of the film's quietest scenes lies a single moment that feels too human to be staged. The family hides in the basement. The power's gone. The flashlight flickers. The beam cuts through the darkness, sweeping across shelves and boxes. Then two eyes blink back. Note alien, note animal, human, a face in the shadows, watching from the corner. The shot lasts a second before the light moves away. No one reacts. The movie never references it again, but slow it down, frame by frame, and you'll see it a pair of eyes fixed on the lens. Not glowing, just aware. No documentation, no explanation, not even a whisper from Shyamalan about the moment's existence. In a movie about faith and the unknown, this isn't supernatural. It's worse, because whoever's there isn't supposed to be. The Others, 2001. The Others breathes dread into silence. Every sound matters. Every flicker of candlelight feels intentional. So when something unplanned happens, it echoes louder than any scream. Grace sits at dinner with her children. The air is tense. The candles burn low. As she speaks softly, the camera circles around the table, smooth, graceful, ghost-like. Then Nicholas, her son, turns his gaze directly toward us. It's not confusion, not accident. His face is still, his eyes locked. He isn't looking at his mother. He isn't looking at anything in the room. He's looking through it. No one ever mentions this moment in interviews or behind-the-scenes material, but watch closely, and it's undeniable. Es Jesus. Or maybe something standing behind us. In a story about invisible presences and half-remembered souls, this glance feels like a message, as if Nicholas, without knowing, just made contact with whatever's been watching him all along. Goodfellas, 1990. By the time Goodfellas reaches its final act, paranoia is the air Henry Hill breathes. The camera moves faster, scenes cut quicker, and every face seems to be watching him. Then comes the moment that no one ever talks about. Henry walks into the kitchen, sweating, frantic, unraveling. The camera trails behind. Karen follows him in, silent. As he turns away, she glances over her shoulder and looks straight into the lens. It's only a second, but it's enough. Her expression is fragile, uncertain, like someone who's caught sight of something they weren't supposed to. Then she looks away, and the scene keeps rolling, as if nothing happened. It's easy to dismiss it as a mistake, a tired actor finding her mark. But Scorsese, known for precision, left it in. He didn't cut. He didn't explain. In a movie about eyes everywhere, mobsters, cops, betrayal, this one glance feels like the purest truth. Maybe Karen isn't just looking into the camera. Maybe, for that instant, she realizes she's trapped inside the story, and someone out here is watching her fall apart. The Blair Witch Project, 1999. The Blair Witch Project reinvented horror by pretending not to be a movie at all. Its terror was born from the illusion that someone simply found a tape, but one shot inside that found footage remains haunting precisely because it feels too real. Heather turns the camera, panning across a sea of trees. Just before she begins her desperate monologue, the lens catches movement to the left, a man standing between the trees, silent, facing the camera. He's motionless, not blurred, not afraid, just there. He isn't one of the main characters. The crew swore they were miles away, and yet, he's in the frame. Freeze the moment. His face seems neutral, but there's focus in his eyes, as if he's waiting for her to notice, as if he's been waiting all along. In a film about being lost, this one image inverts everything, because maybe the real horror isn't being hunted in the wood. It's realizing that something's already watching you, and has been since the beginning. Children of Men, 2006. Cuarón's Children of Men thrives on chaos that feels alive, handheld, unbroken, suffocating. In that illusion of realism, one imperfection slipped through, and it's the one thing that feels most real of all. During the extended long take through the refugee camp, Theo runs through a city on fire. The camera moves with him, shaking, frantic, until it passes a ruined wall where a man sits and looks directly into the lens. Not a passing glance, not confusion. He stares, calm, still, present, as if he knows this is not fiction. He's not listed among the extras, not seen elsewhere. His stare feels deliberate, too composed for accident, too subtle for intent. Theories surfaced years later. A forgotten extra, a real onlooker who wandered into the frame, Or perhaps something stranger, someone reacting to the camera not as a machine, but as an eye. For a film about faith collapsing and humanity fading, that one look breaks everything. Because for a moment, the story isn't watching the world die. The world is watching us. The Shining, 1980. The Shining has been studied, dissected, and mythologized to exhaustion. Yet amid the film's perfectly composed terror, there's one frame that refuses to be understood. As Danny rides his tricycle through the hallways of the Overlook Hotel, the camera glides behind him in silence. Right before he turns a corner, something flickers above. A faint human outline. Still, watching. It isn't Jack. It isn't anyone we recognize. A shadow with the suggestion of eyes fixed on the lens. For Kubrick, who demanded control down to the millimeter, such a presence seems impossible. There's no crew reflection, no lighting stand, no sound operator caught by mistake, yet the shape is there, visible, aware. Home releases have restored the shot in full clarity. The figure never disappears. It remains unexplained, unacknowledged, like a fingerprint left by someone who shouldn't exist. In a movie about madness looping endlessly inside a haunted space, this is the quietest and most disturbing echo. A ghost that didn't belong to the story, but to the film itself. And it's looking straight at us. The Passion of Joan of Arc, 1928. In 1928, before dialogue, before color, there was The Passion of Joan of Arc, a film of faces. Every frame feels sacred, each tear monumental. But in that sea of devotion lies one presence that doesn't belong. As Joan stands trial, the camera lingers on her face, fragile, trembling, luminous. Behind her, barely visible, a dark figure sits, cloaked, still. When Joan lowers her eyes, the figure lifts his head and looks straight at the camera. It's subtle, easy to miss. Yet when you catch it, it freezes you. The eyes don't move. They don't act. They observe. He's not in any cast record, not in Dreyer's meticulous notes. Historians have combed every reel, every negative he's never identified. But he remains there, quietly defying time, watching from almost a century away. In a film about faith, martyrdom, and witness, maybe this is no mistake at all. Maybe Joan wasn't the only one being judged. Maybe, for once, the camera was the confessional and someone else was listening. Cinema is meant to separate us from what we see, to let us look without consequence. But what if the screen doesn't just show? What if it remembers? These glances, fleeting, human, accidental, remind us that the fourth wall was never solid. It only existed because we believed it did. They weren't supposed to see the camera. They weren't supposed to see us. And yet, they did. So what were they really looking at? The lens? The void? Or the people sitting quietly in the dark, eyes wide, hearts still believing they were safe behind the screen? Tell us which moment unsettled you the most. Comment, subscribe, and keep watching closely. Because maybe next time, when you press play, the film will be watching you back.